Welcome to episode 201 of the Stretty cast. My name is Dale O'Donnell and Brian Murphy joins me to discuss Manchester United's FA Cup triumph after overcoming Pep Guardiola's Man City at Wembley. We will provide our own end-of-season review as speculation surrounding Erik Ten Hag's job reaches untold levels. You will also discover what it's like to play at the Theatre of Dreams. That and more on the Stretty cast.
Erik Ten Hag, Erik Ten Hag, la 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 la. Erik Ten Hag, Erik Ten Hag, la 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 la.
Brian, after the season we've endured, discussed many things on the podcast, it's been very negative. I'm going to start this podcast as FA Cup champions, a result in which neither of us seen coming. Well, in fairness, you spoke last week about Rashford scoring a winner. You had some hope, but a lot of people out there, gave us no chance whatsoever. City, the best team in England, the best players, the best squad. United's performance was outstanding. Tell us what you make about being FA Cup champions after just a dour season.
Like I was saying to you the last day, it's just typical United that we can be so poor and so underwhelming, and all of a sudden, like it's a throwback to the Liverpool game. We were shit going into that game, massive game coming up for us. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, we get a result. It's just typical United, and I suppose, look, historically, you can just never write us off. Even when we're going through bad spells, we're always capable of just turning up on the big day and getting that one big win over the line. And that's what it was. It was an unbelievable performance. A bit of a big difference when a couple of fellas come back into the side. You saw the difference Lissandro Martinez made to the side again. Massive difference. Totally different style of football, totally different ability to play a different way. Phenomenal difference. And you can see like what we were missing when you're missing the likes of him during the season. That's a massive loss. But fantastic performance all around. It was funny when the team was named. A lot of eyebrows were raised and kind of going, Jesus, what way is this going to work? Is it a stroke of genius? Is it brilliant from Ten Hag? Is it going to work out at all? Is it going to be brutal? But he had this lovely little setup where we kind of almost went 6-4 out of possession, and all of a sudden 4-2-2-2-2 and broke, played on the break. And the only way we were going to get a result out of that game, playing a side of City's calibre at the moment, was soak up a bit of pressure, hit them on the break, and hopefully put them chances away. First goal was a gift. Horrific defending. The Garnacho just popped in out of nowhere, slotted it home. Everyone was fucking bouncing. The second goal, sweet mother of Jesus Christ. If you could paint poetry, that's what that goal was. Absolutely fantastic. I saw a thing, Dale, during the week. It was the four different sports outlets. The commentary on that goal. Three of them were fantastic. One of them said, and Bruno Fernandes has miskicked it. Jesus Christ, like, come off it. That was the most outrageous pass. The result, I actually backed it in the bookies before the game started. I threw 50 on United to win, McTominay to score, and Martinez to get booked. Thought Martinez might have had a bit of a battle on his hands, and law of averages, he might have one old fucking dirty tackle. And I thought McTominay might just come good and pop up. Neither of those happened, but we did get the win. And at the end of the day, who's had a better season when you've caught it all up and you put it down on paper? Arteta, Klopp's farewell, or Bald's best, Erik Ten Hag. I'll take winning the FA Cup and not finishing top four every single day of the week. Football's about winning trophies, and that's what we did. So it's up to yourself if you don't agree with that opinion, but football's about winning trophies, and days out like that for the fans. And he gave it to us once again. A couple of finals in 2 years, 2 trophies. Hard to argue with it.
No, I 100% agree. But also, I thought it was fitting how the silver lining in United's difficult campaign has been the emergence of academy players. In many ways, Kobbie Mainoo and Garnacho's second season now in the first team. It was fitting that it was 2 teenagers that came from the academy that scored against City in the final to win it for United. I thought that was fitting for Ten Hag too, that are 2 players that maybe he was kind of perhaps over-reliant on this season, giving him maybe too many games. But they're players that young players he's put a lot of faith in. And, when they can, they're young. They can't be relying to kind of win games for United every single week. but they've stood up a lot more than some of the experienced players throughout the campaign. Now, you touched on something when you started speaking about the 2-1 win over City, and it was the having players back fit. And I guess it was kind of an example of Ten Hag's vision shining through with those key players being back, Martinez being crucial at the back. And not just Martinez, but the combination with Varane. We seen last season how important that was. And I couldn't help but watch that game thinking how many football matches we didn't win this season that we would have won with those two paired at centre back. Because if you remember the brief period when Martinez came back in January, Varane wasn't fit for that period. They didn't get that run of games, and we seriously missed that. And I think some of the criticism totally overlooks that. So I think, yeah, that was an example of that. Another thing you touched on, I wanted to ask you about was the call to drop Casemiro from the starting 11, because the news broke on Friday from the Athletic. Adam Crafton, he said that tactically Casemiro was going to be left out, that United were preparing to face City all week with a different shape with Amrabat in midfield. And that's what happened. Now, there's reports that Casemiro was injured before the game, left off the bench, but then there was reports from Brazil that wasn't the case, that he wasn't injured at all. Didn't spend the whole evening with the team, left the after party early to go on holidays with his family, and it remains to be seen if he'll ever be back in Manchester because his future's up in the air. What did you make of that call? And as well as that, Casemiro's potential decision not to show up, appear on the bench?
The timeline of this in inverted commas injury timeline doesn't really add up to an injury, because I think the team sheet that was handed over, he was named in, or he was involved in, or whatever, and all of a sudden he's not starting and he's picked up an injury. But you look at it and say, where did the injury come from? Because he didn't get it in the warm up. This magical injury he got, I think it's a cover story calling a spade a spade. I think he was absolutely fucking raging that he wasn't starting. On the other side of it, Amrabat, do you know, Amrabat, in fairness to him, he's got a bit of respect back in his name the last few games. Nice to see that for the fella too. He's had a shit enough loan period with us. He's covered at left back. He came in and hasn't covered himself in glory. Came into a side that wasn't playing very well and didn't really get a chance to kind of stamp his authority on games or try and show what he's about. So it was nice for Amrabat the last couple of weeks to get a bit of just to kind of put a bit of respect back in himself. But Casemiro's absolutely fuming. Have no doubt about that. He's a big game player who's won it all. He can't be anything but absolutely fucking raging. Doesn't look great. No, on the flip side, he's been fucking terrible. I know that. He has been terrible, but played out of position quite a bit as well. I don't think we will see him coming back. And I'm not totally against that, because I think his time at the top is gone. I think we need to go a different direction.
I think I'll give him more criticism for what happened the weekend, to be totally honest, because you look at the comparison of Rasmus Højlund, and I'm sure he wasn't happy to be left out of the team at the weekend. There's no way he was, but the way in which he came on, it showed that he came on looking for a battle. It was very important to our hold-up play, and made a difference when he came on. And I think that's the difference. That's what you'd expect from. You're talking about, what he's done, and he must have been gutted. Show your fucking experience then. You are an experienced pro pushing on. I'm not saying it's similar or like for Cristiano Ronaldo, but I'm kind of talking the same sense where you're a player pushing on. You should be better than this. You've played at the top for long enough. You know how disruptive it can be when players act the bollocks in such a way. You get me? Especially, as by the way, as well, just when you're on the way out. Let's cause a little stir before the final. A bit much.
I suppose what I'm looking at is, did you see the interview with him? Was it last week or the week before, where he was kind of saying the media have it in for him and a lot of people have it in for him, and you don't go from being a good footballer to being a shit footballer overnight. And he's obviously taken the criticism pretty much to heart. So he's obviously in a bad headspace that way. He's negative about things. He's pissed off. He's after having a fucking bad season. I'm just saying, I'm not backing him up by any means, because I would 100% sell him tomorrow morning. I think his time is up, and he probably should have had more maturity to deal with it better and take it on the chin. But you can see that he's suffering in the background. He's suffering from getting criticised every week. But then again, look, constructive criticism is warranted in football, and it's part and parcel of the game. on the flip side again, we always kind of throw it back. Harry Maguire got fucking pelters, far more abuse than Casemiro's after getting, and put the head down and stuck it out. So it was a bit kind of shithouse the way it went on. And if you look again, you look at the timeline of this injury, by the ways, I think he just fucking spat the dummy out. I don't think if we can find someone to buy him, I don't think he's coming back. I really don't.
Just to add to that as well, we did hear a few weeks back when Casemiro was playing in the team out of position that he was very unhappy anyway with how he felt that the finger was being pointed at him, in the sense that he was being played out of position, he's having a tough season. But there's been a lot of talk too since the takeover that Sir Jim Radcliffe and then we're kind of looking at the Casemiro transfer as an example of one they wouldn't do. He felt then as a result of having a bad season, the finger was being pointed at him. So it could come down to a bit of that too. There could be more to it. And as you touched on correctly, he's been played out of position a lot. And maybe he has a point that, should it be all on him?
You're just after mentioning something about the type of signings, the type of transfers that we're doing. It's exactly the type of transfer that we need to start staying away from. It's exactly the type of transfer that I mentioned recently when we want to see a change of strategy, a change of how the club works. When Ineos come in now and we see this new regime, that's not the type of transfer I want to see us do. I don't want to see us going after players coming off their prime for big money, big wages. I want to see us buying players before their prime or in their prime. Don't be the final destination and that last big paycheck. Be the team that gets you when you're ready to hit your prime, ready to give us your absolute best years. Then you're worth giving a decent contract to and decent money. But we really, really do need to stop this habit of buying players. Like, again, look at Schweinsteiger, 5 years too late. Unbelievable footballer, and gave a great effort for a while with us, but his time was up. It was a bad transfer. It was a bad signing. These type of signings are going to do nothing. If we want to get back to where we want to be in the league, in Europe, we need to be far more clever with what we're signing. Not even signing players in their prime, signing players, predicting their prime to come in 2 or 3 or 4 years. Get them in, get them ready, let them blood into the team, and then let them flourish. But we need to stop being that fucking final destination. That's the MLS for all. I know it's a bit fucking harsh and it's a bit dramatic, but the MLS is where players need to go to fucking get their big money off Beckham and Inter Miami, not coming to us and not being able to give us everything they have. And no disrespect to the likes of Casemiro. He's an unbelievable footballer. He has been an unbelievable footballer all his career. But we're not going to see the Casemiro that we've seen over the last 5 or 6 years. We're going to see the Casemiro coming off that and starting his decline. And that's the kind of focus and strategy we really, really need to see change with Ineos and Radcliffe and these boys coming in. I really hope this summer. I hope this summer is a start of a massive, massive change of mind frame in the transfer market.
Bruno Fernandes is a player we briefly touched on, but he really stood out for me with his sheer influence. And we've seen that really in parts of the season. But at Wembley on Saturday, he was outstanding. Rooney said on a podcast this week that it's difficult to identify United's leaders. Well, Bruno stands out like a sore thumb. Brian, captaincy, it's been questioned with him throughout the campaign whether he's been a leader in that. Do you think that FA Cup final is a performance that we'll remember and say, right, I think he proved it that day that he is a leader?
I've been one of the people who've asked the question about Bruno as a captain, and looking at his demeanour, the type of player he is, the question I've always had over his captaincy was, is he the type of captain that's going to drag the rest of the lads around him by the scruff of the neck and get him over the line, get the extra 5%, throw a few fucks into a few fellas and just drive the team on? And he's not. And that's not a negative against him. That's not who he is. Bruno's leadership, which it took me a while to see, to be honest, because I did question it. Bruno's leadership is what he produces. His assists and his goals are absolutely fucking pivotal to the side. Without them, we'd be bollocksed. He's not going to give a load of shit to a fella beside him and drag him on like a Keane or a Robbo. We've been used to, I suppose it's the era we're in and the age group we're in. We grew up seeing these kind of hard tackling. That's the kind of leader we saw. That's the kind of captain. The modern game is a little bit different, and Bruno's not that type of lad, but he does have leadership qualities in his own way. I always think back to the time when Solskjaer was going out to the crowd and he was getting pelters, and Bruno stood up beside him and kind of showed that bit of a leadership where he was saying, no, give it to the team, don't give it to the gaffer. I always had a lot of time for that, a bit of respect for it, but he's definitely shown his worth as a captain by his performances more so than by his attitude, because we know he can be very petulant at times and he can be a bit moody and a bit bitchy, but he's not the kind of captain. If you want to expect a captain in the mold of Keane and Robbo, it's not the kind of captain he is. But if you want a captain who's going to show you how to, how am I going to say it? He's going to show you what he wants by doing it himself, by scoring and by assisting. Yeah, he has that in spades. Like he's a creative genius, and his stats speak for themselves. So he's probably just leading the way and letting his football do his talking, which is fair enough.
Absolutely. And I just want to state as well, I think we have to point out that United, I know they conceded late in the second half, and that was an Onana mistake, but he was terrific again. I thought he made some important saves tonight, Kyle Walker. But I just thought the overall performance, you could come out of that game and say that United dominated. After the season we've had and the performance we've watched, I just think that's baffling. But again, it's back to the very first point that we made on this podcast, that key players back. And we've said this about injuries. It's been thrown at us that the excuse line is getting weak. And I just don't buy it. We've seen once the team is back, it's kind of full. Well, the key players are back. I don't believe they were all 100% fully fit. But with them back, City were put in their place.
Let me ask you one question. It's about something you just mentioned there. Bit of a tangent again, but Andre Onana, I don't disagree with you, made some fucking amazing saves. But then the blooper. Is it not too regular that he has the 4 or 5 great saves and then it's a calamity mistake which gives a goal away? Like, how do you judge him on the fact that can be very, very good for 89 minutes of the game, but the mistake he makes is a fucking nightmare and it's a goal? It's very much a very costly mistake and it's very regular.
It is, and it's something that next season he needs to address, because unless United are going to change their approach to accepting 20, 25 shots a game, you can't really have a goalkeeper that's making those mistakes regularly. I can buy a manager coming out with an approach and being a bit bold and saying, right, we let a team take 20, 25 pop shots at us. I know you don't like XG, but if you look at the XG of these shots, it's not very high. Or like it's off the scale. Like, it's unlikely that they're going to score. That's fine, but it's not really fine, as you say, when your goalkeeper is making those errors prone. It's not getting down quick enough at times. I think I look at Onana's physique and I think he's a little bit bulky. I think if he was a little bit less bulky and more lean, he might be quicker getting down. Now, I'm not no goalkeeping expert, and neither of us are, but that's just an observation from afar. In Ten Hag's post-match press conference, he spoke about his 2 trophies in 2 years. That if the club weren't happy with that he will take his trophies elsewhere and he'll go and win them there. This leads us on to our end of season review nicely. I just want to get a quick verdict from you on Erik Ten Hag after winning the FA Cup and where you stand before we get into that season review and we look at it a bit closer.
It's the question, where do I stand on Ten Hag? Just to clarify.
What decision do you think is the right one to make right now, this summer?
My position has never changed from the day he walked into the club to today. I've been adamant that I see him as the manager going forward. I don't see anybody else out there. Even if you look at the names that are linked to us, not one of those managers, even if I wasn't on the Ten Hag inside for the sake of argument, none of those managers grab me and go, geez, I'd love to have him. Look at Chelsea. Chelsea are after going for the Leicester gaffer. Bayern Munich went for Vincent Kompany. It's not like there's a load of managers out there in the world of football that are at the top level of their game and would scream, he'd be a great manager for us. Ten Hag had a fucking awful hand dealt to him this season. Did he deal with it the best way he could? Probably not. Could he have done better? Probably. But at the end of the day, he delivered another trophy, trips to Wembley. He can kind of justify it by the fact that he got battered with injuries and still delivered a trophy. So I'm 100% keep him, absolutely all day. Keep him, give him another season. Let's see what happens under this new regime and see if that can give him a boost and give him a hand next season.
Yeah, I think the managerial candidates, none of them stand out as a definite right fit for United. And I think there was a bit of an acceptance on my behalf early on this season and last season that we know we're not competing in Premier League title race with City, although we do also accept that we want to be a bit of a cup team if we're not quite there. Or we want those days out of finals. We want those winning trophies and the prospect of doing so. And that at the very least is what Ten Hag has delivered. The Premier League form this season has been a disaster, has been nowhere near good enough. And he won't survive that if there's a repeat of it. Not a chance. It can be accepted, I think, definitely based on the injuries, because we've seen little glimpses of what it can be, how good it can be when those players are back. The failure in Europe goes against him as well. But I just think that we have to kind of accept where we are right now, where we were when Ten Hag came in, and what we were saying back then about it taking potentially 3-4 years to get back. Well, there was never any guarantee that those 3 years, in fact, it was quite unlikely that those 3 years leading up to that were going to be rosy, that there wasn't going to be bumps along the way. I just feel that with the new structure coming in, there's something fresh going on at the club, that why Ten Hag can't get a chance at that. Although what I do fear, Brian, I don't know how you feel about this, is I I worry a little bit about how Ineos are going about this, because it's taken very long. They've been speaking to other managers. And if you put the ring on the other finger, how would we feel if Erik Ten Hag was speaking to other clubs? If the club wanted him to remain as manager, I just worry that if they keep going down this road and isolating the manager, that will leave him coming back in the summer, if he does, very unhappy and feeling wrongly done after delivering trophies. Do you get what I mean? And I wouldn't blame him.
100%, 100%. He's probably sitting there thinking, why are they interviewing other managers? Why have they not clarified the position? And it is taking a bit long. One of the things you mentioned was the European campaign, which was a disaster. I don't hold him responsible for that, in the sense that I do hold Andre Onana responsible for it, which is harsh, I know, with the couple of blunders that he did make. They were blunders that literally cost us games, that essentially knocked us out of the competition. He doesn't make a couple of fucking howlers. We get through. I thought some of the games we played in Europe, Ten Hag set us up quite well. We put in decent performances. We played relatively well in some of these games, and we shot ourselves in the foot. And I don't think it's wrong to say Onana committed some fucking absolute bloopers in the European trail. On another day, he doesn't make the mistakes, and you go through to the next stage. So it's a bit of a kick in the bollocks, that one. But I get what you're saying. Ten Hag is sitting back. He's kind of adamant that the club have said to him they're planning to go forward with him. He's adamant that he's staying. But in the background, we all know that the club are going talking to other fucking managers. So it is a bit of a slap in the face to him, I think, by the club. They need to be a little bit more tactful, and they need to be a bit more respectful. Just fucking clarify the situation now. Get it done. If you're going to go, Ten Hag is getting sacked or Ten Hag is staying, make the decision and move forward. Dragging your feet doesn't help anyone. Doesn't help the fans. The speculation gives the media a field day, and it's not good for the manager.
One thing that's popped up this week or in the past few months is the influence, and we're only kind of learning what some of these key figures in the new recruitment department, what their roles are going to play and whatnot. But we're starting to see that Brailsford is going to have a very significant influence at Manchester United, and I'd argue beyond what he should be given, in the sense that I get he's going to come in with these great ideas and the way that the Carrington should be run or training ground should be run, and what the facilities and whatnot. He's all those fantastic ideas. He's seen it in sport across the world. But I just think Brailsford, cycling expert, deciding the future of the manager at Manchester United, just in my mind seems a bit baffling. And there's enough whispers out there to suggest that who he's favouring to become United manager, and it's not very convincing. But do you worry about that? His lack of expertise in football? Yes, he has a bit of expertise from Nice, but reports aren't too flattering from there. When he first went there, he was very much aloof.
I think he kind of needs to stick to his strengths, and the fact of like all these marginal gains and getting all this extra percent here, there, and everywhere. That's brilliant, and that's a very it's a very clever way to progress forward, to try and change the ethos of the club and change the mindset of what way it's ran and what way we operate and what way we look at different things, training regimes or whatever else. 100%. Should he be making the decision on who the next manager is? Absolutely not. As you said, he's coming from a cycling background. I don't think he should have that power whatsoever. Of course, he's going to be involved in the conversation, but
Do you think
I
he
don't
should be?
think that's a
No,
role.
that's more so my question. Do you think he should be part of the conversation with a decision like this? So what input? Because seriously, cycling expert.
I suppose, I know, but I suppose, look, he could be involved in the conversation in the fact that does this person kind of share that mindset of working, buying into our kind of ethos and buying into what we're doing? Is he the kind of person that would get on board with what we're doing? Yes, but should he be the person picking names out of the hat? No, I don't think so. But definitely, if the club puts two or three names together, then get his opinion on it and say, look, what do you think of this guy? Do you think he'd fit in with our mindset going forward and our marginal gains or whatever you want to call it? Yes, but outside of that, I don't think he should be making the suggestions and picking the people.
We can't say that he definitely will be. It's just, all I'm bringing it up as is it's just a bit of a fear. Kind of thinking all of a sudden this guy is steering a ship at the biggest football club in the world. It's a bit. And I seen this leveled actually just to make the point about Jason Wilcox, and it was a tweet or along the lines of how can you imagine telling Alex Ferguson back in 1994 that Blackburn winger is going to be deciding how Manchester United are going to be playing football and what approach we're going to take. Now, I think that's a bit unfair because Alex Ferguson himself, or not Alex Ferguson, wasn't the greatest player of all time, but you look at the likes of Mourinho, you don't necessarily have to be top footballers to become great coaches or great football experts.
Wilcox one, the
Oh,
curiosity I have
sorry.
around Wilcox.
You better not just be a fucking cyclist or a cyclist expert.
Yes. The curiosity around the Wilcox one is Wilcox came in, and I don't even know if this is true or not, but people are putting forward the argument that Wilcox is creating the style of play that we want to play and dictating that to Ten Hag. I find that a bit strange because I can't see how Wilcox comes in, says to Ten Hag, I don't want you to play that way at all. This is how we're going to play. Like, he's not the gaffer. This is how we're going to play. You need to change your system to my way of playing. It just doesn't compute to me on a normal fucking scale that I'm going, this guy came out of nowhere. Now he's coming in telling Erik Ten Hag how to do his job, specifically down to like tactics and style. Is that something that's logistically or realistically happening?
Come on. Put it this way. If you're Erik Ten Hag, a manager that, by the way, before he came to Manchester United, proved himself on a European scale, you're not going to take that kind of instructions from anybody. You're the manager. And you shouldn't. And if it comes out that he actually has, it's different now if Wilcox went in and had a conversation with him and said, look, going forward, we're going to be adapting this type of football. You need to shore up a little bit. But I don't believe that he'd have the neck or the bollocks to go into the manager and say, you need to set up this way from now on, the way it's not working. They could have had conversations about it, but I think that underestimates Ten Hag as a manager in a big way. I don't think it went that far.
I'm sure they're going to have like combined conversations and everyone's going to be on the one page and all this kind of stuff, the new structure job. Yeah, but like you said, I can't see Wilcox coming in saying, Erik, we're doing this, and Erik not turning around going, Jason, go fuck himself and fuck off. I'm the gaffer. You're talking
Erik,
about before he came.
4-4-2.
Yeah, two pacey wingers. You mentioned before he came into United, right? I saw a lovely stat just before we came on. Since 2013, the best manager that ever lived, Jurgen Klopp, has won 8 trophies. Since 2013, Erik Ten Hag, the worst manager that ever lived, has won 8 trophies. There's your comparison.
There you go. There you have it. So, look, as we know it right now, Ten Hag has some backers, but will it be enough? We don't know. There's mixed signs coming out. Nothing really to report until the club announced it. I wouldn't be believing anything. I would be staying away from that story on Twitter because it may run into next week. As of now, I don't think anyone's the wiser as to what way it'll go. But we will have another episode or two before we take a mini break for the season. So hopefully we'll have an answer by then to give some sort of reaction before we come back for the summer. Brian, moving on, I want to talk about you living a dream this week. At the beginning of the week, you flew over to Manchester after we were crowned FA Cup champions. And on Monday, you had the pleasure of playing at Old Trafford. How did that come about? And what was it like?
Well, it came about. I run a supporters club here locally, And obviously through that, we deal with the club quite a bit. So I kind of get to know a lot of people at the club through that. And last season they sent us an email asking us to put our names into a hat essentially to try and get a chance to play a game at Old Trafford, which I was unlucky enough not to get pulled out. This summer I was lucky enough to get a call. I was at work one day, the phone lit up and one of the lads working at the club rang me and I just looked at the phone and went, oh Jesus, I'm in trouble for something here. Answered the phone. I said, well, what have I done? He goes, you're banned again. I said, what? And he said, no, I'm only joking. Do you fancy playing a match on the 27th? So I was buzzing with that, yeah, absolutely. I flew over that morning, Monday morning, came straight from the airport to Old Trafford, walked in where the players walk in. There was staff there waiting to greet us with walked in where the players walked in, cameras inside, as you'd see, kind of cameras getting Rashford and the boys walking in, same kind of crack. Walked around the pitch for about an hour, chatting away to the lads, getting a few pictures taken and stuff. Went in, got our teams named, lined up in the tunnel to the music that the players walk out to, cameras on, shaking hands with people across from you, walking out like players would, music on, Alan Keegan introducing the team, like spine tingling stuff. Keegan stayed on and he commentated on the game for the whole game over the 10 system. The United staff were there, the media staff were there doing interviews and taking pictures and whatnot. Played a match where I got absolutely done like a kipper with a couple of shots from a little tricky fella in midfield, stuck two of them over my head. There was
You
22
giving
players.
Onana a stick?
Yeah, I know, but I'm not on Onana's wages. Like, there's a big fucking difference there. There was 22 players per team, so you had a buddy system where you played 22 and a half minutes first half, then the other fella that was in your position played the second bit of it, and the same in the second half. Half time, usual crack, drinks and oranges and sweets and protein bars and whatever kind of stuff you'd expect players to have, and bit of a chill out. Played the rest of the game, took some photos. Lou McCarry was there. He was chatting away on the Tannoy. Rick McGath, Michael Lenigan. After the game, went in and we got changed and showered and stuff. Went upstairs to the Trafford suite and food provided, drinks provided on the house, and it was just an absolutely unbelievable day. Like I said, dreams come true. And if you're listening, I wrote an article for Stretty News about it and kind of goes into a bit more detail. So I'll give that a flick if you can. But yeah, absolutely, it's a dream come true. There's no more you can say about that. It's something you think about since you're a child, and nice to say I've done it. So very, very lucky.
Did you get any post-match praise from Lou?
No, basically told I was shit by most people, to be honest about it, and I was.
Simple as that. Well, look, it's not something that happens every week, playing at Old Trafford, and it's definitely something you can put down in one of your chapters in your books.
I'm looking forward to telling my kids. Like, my kids are too young at the moment. My older lad is 3 and my younger lad is about a year and a half, so they're too young to understand what daddy was doing or where he was going. Or even when I go to matches, they always say, oh daddy, you're going to football, but they don't really comprehend what I'm doing or where I'm going. So it'd be nice.
Just tell him you went to like daddy's playground.
Yeah, off daddy's playground.
Daddy's big Disney World.
Yeah, exactly. Now I'm looking forward to when they get that little bit older and when I can look back and show them pictures and stuff and explain to them that when they're watching that team on the telly, before I start getting them into going to games with me, that daddy's played there and daddy's kicked the ball around that place. It'll be very cool.
Daddy had a few howlers in that goal. So anyway, moving on to listeners' questions. We have a few good ones in that we need to get to before we wrap it up. Larry asks, the new co-owners said that they will dictate a style of play for the head coach to implement. There was a notable change over the last 4 games. This is kind of touching on what we just finished on, but do you think Wilcox and Erik ten Hag had a chat about how wide open we were? With the expectation of the first half against Brighton, we were more compact. Now, I know we kind of touched on this, but don't think that Larry's coming at the angle that Wilcox was underestimating or devaluing Ten Hag's role, maybe just a suggestion, which I was kind of alluding to this was more likely. Do you think that, did you notice a difference in United's approach in that lead up to the FA Cup final?
We definitely noticed a difference, and I suppose that's what led to throwing up that question about Wilcox's involvement in it, because after he came on board, you did see a bit of a difference in the style of play. But like I said a minute ago, I would assume it's more of a collective effort where they're all sitting down together going, look, we're going to change things around, things aren't working. This is the direction we want to go in. and this is what we're thinking about doing. Which I think is the right way to do it. I mean, the club needs to be more together, and Ten Hag needs to have more support behind him. Like previous managers haven't had that support from the club and the structure, so I don't dislike it at all. I think it's a great way to move forward, but I don't think Wilcox has, like, let's not beat around the bush. He's not going to have the power to come in and change things himself. I don't think that's his role, but I definitely think it's great to see a bit of more of a football deal, a football structure, a structure based on football, on what's on the pitch. It's not focusing on getting fucking tire sponsors and noodle sponsors. It's changing our style of play. That's what we want to see, is it not?
100%, 100%. And like it's been said about this team for years, even under previous managers, that we were lacking identity and lacking a style of play. And that does tend to come at clubs from the very top to bottom. It has to be decided. Everyone has to be on the same page. It's a shame that Ten Hag wasn't brought in with this already in place, but it's why we're having these, what I describe as teething problems. Phil asks, are there any players who may have been on their way out that may have changed people's minds given their performance in the final? I think who Phil may be alluding to there is Amrabat. Any other players?
Really? Even Amrabat, like, I
I
think he got
wouldn't
a bit
keep him either.
unlucky to be. No, I wouldn't. He got a bit unlucky, to give him credit. He got a bit unlucky when he came in first. He's shown a bit of more promise, but 2 or 3 or 4 games at the end of the season, after the season he's had previous to that, it's not worth bringing him in, even if you get him on the cheap. I know we need squad depth in that, but he's not. He hasn't shown to be sufficient quality for the level that we're aiming at. And I suppose we have to raise the expectations that if we want to get back to the position we want to be in, we need to expect a bit better from squad depth, even what's coming off the bench. So he's he's done his best. It wasn't great. I wouldn't be keeping him. I don't think anyone that was there that we were questioning keeping him have changed our minds. And I'm mostly glad that Martial didn't get a swan song, the bastard, because he's pissed me off for years. So great to see him gone as well.
Two more questions. This one's a bit long one with Steve, right? So I had 4 categories or 4 different lists of 3 players. I need you to pick one from each category. So in A, you've got Brian Robson, Eric Cantona, or Wayne Rooney.
Tough question. Context wise, picking them as in favorite, best, or best player of the list, or what's our context wise?
We'll say best player. And we'll go best player.
Fuck me.
In their
Cantona,
prime.
Rob,
In their prime.
Cantona, Robson, or Keane?
Yeah. Sorry, no.
Robson was.
Cantona. Sorry, no. Robson, Cantona, Rooney.
Oh Jesus, it's fucking worse.
Apologies.
Robson phenomenal. Cantona, the game changer when he came in. Rooney, longevity and what he achieved. I'm gonna go Rooney. I could get shot for this, so I'm gonna go Rooney.
Next list. Gerrard, Lampard, Fabregas.
Hang on, what was your answer? Don't throw me to the wolves here before you give an answer yourself.
Rooney.
Okay. Gerrard, Lampard, or
Fabregas.
Jesus Christ, like Gerrard, phenomenal footballer. Hated him, and every fucking minute I saw his face, I hated him. Lampard, top class footballer, had no love for him whatsoever again. Who was the last one?
Fabregas.
Fabregas nearly signed for us, so if I was to play the shithouse card, I'd go for Fabregas just for the fact that he nearly signed for us. But as a footballer,
I'm saying bollocks to your shithouse comment because I think he gets it anyway. I'd have Fabregas.
Yeah, I've always liked Fabregas' style. I've always enjoyed watching him play football. Yeah, fuck Steven Gerrard, Fabregas.
Fucking World Cup winner. Champions League
Yeah.
winners too, right?
That's footballer.
Yeah. Next list. Di Maria, Tevez, Michael Owen.
Jeez, that's a horrible list. I'm taking Michael Owen only because he scored that goal for us. Di Maria, Tevez is one of my most hated humans on the planet, and Di Maria is a fucking wanker. So even
Best
though
player in the
Owen's a
prime,
dickhead,
Michael Owen. Now remember, he did win a Ballon d'Or. None of the other 2 did.
oh, he did. And like when he was in his prime, which was his younger years, he was a fucking machine. He was unstoppable.
Obviously hated Tevez for going to City, but I do love that profile of centre forward, little terrier type. But I'm going to play a bit of a wildcard one and say Angel Di Maria because in his best season, he was pretty important to Real Madrid winning the Champions League, and the rest of them didn't win a Champions League. So that one season, obviously, he didn't replicate it when he came to United, and nothing of the sort, and never did it really again. But for that season, I'll give it to Di Maria. You went with Owen. Last list: Keane, McGrath, or Irwin.
Again, it's a tricky one because, well, look, I'm going to rule McGrath out just because didn't do enough for the club for me, even though he was an absolutely fucking brilliant footballer. Choosing between Irwin and Keane is always a horrible one because recently I started looking back at some old videos and Irwin was in those, like that era where Irwin was playing. What a fucking footballer, Mr. Dependable. Such a great temperament, such a great constant level of football. But it has to be Keane. Keane was just fucking, he was next level. Has to be Keane all day long.
Keane all day long. Final question, one for you, Brian, from Jerry. What would be better, playing at Old Trafford or two-footing Luckhurst?
2 foot and Luckhurst in Old Trafford if I had an option. But as much as I can't stand him and as much as I was banned on Twitter for the last week over that fucking grass. Like, what an absolute fucking dipshit. As much as I'd love to 2 foot him, playing at Old Trafford was an absolute dream coming true. 2 foot and Luckhurst is just something I fancy doing at some stage. Probably will if I get the chance. You fucking gollum-headed bastard.
Any AstroTurf venue. Doesn't have to be Old Trafford.
I'll fight him one-on-one outside the Arndale in a wife beater. No problem whatsoever.
Bare knuckle. Look, moving on before we get a legal case against us. Thanks so much for listening to the Stretty cast throughout the season. We will be back in possibly 2 weeks with like an audit of the squad before we head into that transfer window. Brian's heading off on his holidays to Vegas, so he's leaving us for a week. But we'll do that review before we wrap it up for a small break. Of course, make sure you subscribe to the Strettycast. Continue to do so. You can do that on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. You can follow the Strettycast on Twitter and Stretty News on Instagram. Get your news on United as well on the blog, strettynews.com. And you'll hear from us again soon. Brian, how can people follow you on social media?
Get me at DayTrippingRed on Twitter. If you don't subscribe to this podcast, I'm going to force you to sit down and watch Cocomelon for 48 hours on repeat with no break whatsoever. Because you can imagine what I'm going through at the moment. I'm at that stage of life. So for anyone who knows about it, that's a dirty threat. Give it a like, give it a subscribe, give it a 5-star review, and we'll chat to you very soon. Thanks for listening.